Time to see the new meta contender, Swordsoul Tenyi, in action with some test hands. Get this video to 50 likes and I'll give you the list as well. What's up YouTube, Dow here from Zephyr Games, and today I am going to bring you a test hand video for Swordsoul Tenyi. Now, yes, the video that I profiled for you guys was specifically a pure build. However, through a lot of research, I've kind of felt that the Tenyi version shows a bit more of what the deck can do, and I kind of feel that it would be better for me to display what the Tenyis actually offer the deck, because the Tenyis in theory make the deck a little bit cheaper to play. Now I know that's harder to say, but when you don't, or when you can cut out the Dark Phoenix Enforcer, and you could possibly cut out one, maybe all three of the Ecclesias, which are sitting at about £30 to £40 each, straight away the deck becomes a lot more manageable and a lot cheaper to kind of run and influence. So what we're going to do here is we're going to do some test hands, and we're going to show what the different kind of decks or the different kind of builds or plays you can make through the Tenyi version. Now, going for the pure version, you just replace the Tenyi engine with the Phoenix Enforcer Destiny Hero and Destiny Fusion engine alongside Crossout Designator and hand traps. So after a very decent shuffle and a good old cut, we'll do 2 test hands going first and 2 test hands going second, starting with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now that is one of the most broken hands I've ever seen for Tenyi. Now, alongside Swordsoul. So what this actually gives you, and I'll explain it as we go, is these 2 cards here ultimately set you up a Chao Feng, and the Chao Feng basically stops your opponent using Nibiru. This is all without using your normal summon, keep that in mind as well. And then off the back of that, you still have these 3 cards to help give you additional extenders and additional synchros from your plays from there on. So, let's start off with this one. So what we're going to do, because we control no monsters and technically no effect monsters, is we're going to special summon down our Ashuna. You then link the Ashuna off and you go into your you go into your Monk of the Tenyi. You now have the ability, before you activate or put a effect monster on the board, is you can special summon down Vishuddha. Now, by doing that, what you've pretty much done is you've set up everything you need, because you've got a Foolish Burial with Vessel, which also sets up the grave for Tyre, and then you've also got the ability of Ashuna. Because you control a non-effect monster in the form of Monk, you can actually banish this, and straight away this will give you a free, wherever he is, Adhara. And then what Adhara will do is it will give you the ability, once it's in the graveyard, to banish it, as long as you control a non-effect monster, which you will do, to add back the Ashura back to the hand. So you've actually got a lot of plays, and this has all come from technically 2 cards at the moment, or technically 1 if you get rid of the additional extension of the Vishuddha. If you don't have the Vishuddha, that's where the Vessel comes in, because what you do is you send a worm from your deck to the graveyard, and then because you control a face-up non-effect monster, you get to add 1 Tenyi. So that's when you add Vishuddha. So ultimately, you're just making the exact same play that we're making now, but you don't need to hold on to the Vessel. So what you do here is you then sync for a level 8, keeping in mind that the Vishuddha in the graveyard while you've got Tenyi is a free bounce, so going second is pretty cool. The only thing you've got to keep in mind is when you've used a shooter, you are locked into worms for the rest of the turn, which is completely fine because you still get access to all of your cool stuff. So you're going to synchro into Baxia. Now keep in mind as well that this card only bounces cards to the original attributes of worm type. So because we use Dark and Earth, in theory if we're going second, that card can bounce too. But what you want to be doing here is you actually want to banish your Adhara to add back the Ashuna back to the hand. So then you're regaining your hand advantage. Off the back of this as well, you want to use your Baxia's effect to target the Monk, and then you get to target a level 4 or lower in the graveyard to then revive it. So that then gives you the ability. That's probably where you now want to either use Vessel or you keep the Adhara in the grave, because what you're ultimately doing is you're going to be tributing off the Monk, and this is how you get into your Chao Feng. So let's say we keep the Ashuna in the grave, in the banish zone for now. You use Baxia's effect to pop the Monk. That will then let you target the Adhara in the grave to bring it back. Level 1 tuner, level 8 synchro, and then you sync into your Chao Feng. Now, the Chow thing pretty much just says your opponent cannot activate cards or effects with the same attribute as the Yang Xing monster used for the summon. So obviously that is going to lock your opponent out straight away from being able to use light monsters. So goodbye Drytrons, goodbye Nibiru, and then goodbye technically some of the monsters in the mirror match. So you've done all of that without even using your normal summon. If you get a non-effect monster on the board, then you do have the ability of activating the Vishuda and the Adhara in the grave, which you will do because obviously your Soul Swords will produce tokens themselves. So with the Tire, you banish a card or one monster from your grave to special summon a Swordsoul token, which is the level 4 tuner. Keeping in mind we're locked into Worms for the rest of this turn, we now pretty much probably want to activate Emergence. By activating this, you're going to be able to add any of your Swordsouls. So you could probably go for your Strategist, because you're going to set up your vessel by ditching and adding. Or you could go for your Mo Yi to get your draw. It's entirely up to you. With this particular hand, I'd probably go for the Strategist because I'm going to go all out. And my board is pretty much going to end on the Chow Feng plus the level 10 plus the level 8. So that's where we want to work from here. Activate the vessel, send a worm. Right now, I would honestly send your... send like your Adharas or send your other Vishudas just so you can kind of minimize your draws because they're not going to be great to draw. Because they specifically say if you control no effect monsters to special summon them. So your draws aren't going to be great, they'll just be used as discard fodder. Off the back of the vessel, again, you want to add any Tenyi. So I'd probably go for a Shua, which is absolutely fine because you're just going to ditch it anyway. And you're going to regain this hand advantage, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. So you're going to use your Strategist. Your Strategist will then discard a Soul Sword or a Worm, which will be the Achuda. This is then going to let you special summon this card from the hand, and then you get to special summon a Swordsoul token. Let me just get my tokens. There we go. So you get to summon a Swordsoul token, which is going to be a level 4 tuner. But keep in mind, it is a non-effect monster as well. So what does that mean? Well, it does mean we've already used this, but it does mean that you can banish the Adhara to then add back your Ashuna from the banish zone. So you're pretty much setting yourselves up. And it does let you add any of your banished worms, which is obviously another nice bonus. Off the back of this, you probably want to sync these together, which would be a good idea. And this, because you're locked into Worms, you could be going into Baroness if you weren't. But in this one, we're actually going to go into our Supreme Sovereign, which is completely fine because we're going to try and set up all of our other plays because we're going to get the level 8. And the level 8 is going to give us the trap card, and we're going to be able to go from there, which is really nice. So for each banished card, this card gains 100 attack and defense, and your opponent loses 100 attack and defense. So already it's a 31. Not a massive boost, but still good enough. If it would be destroyed by card effects, you can banish one card from your graveyard instead. And then if a card or cards is banished except during the damage step, you get to banish one card each from both your opponent's field and grave. So it's a nice double pop. And the reason that is important is because we're going to go normal summon Tire. Tire is then going to use this effect to banish a worm from the grave. So you can banish anything you want. You've pretty much got anything. Your monk, your Vishuda, you name it. So you're going to banish that. You're going to give yourself another level 4 token, which is of course going to be the tuner. You're locked into Synchros, which is completely fine. But then you're going to sync off. And you're going to go into your level 8, which is going to be your Grandmaster. You then want to go Chainlink 1 Grandmaster, Chainlink 2 of your Tie, because then by doing so, you chain block the search off of this guy. And the effect is you get to Foolish Burial a Soul Sword card or a Worm monster from your deck. So again, it's entirely up to you what you want to send. I would ultimately be flooding my grave with Tenyis that I don't feel I'm going to get much use for right now until the next turn. So keeping in mind, if I have a non-effect monster, my Ashuna can then summon out, and I've got Ashunas to summon out, I've got Adharas to recycle, and then I've got Vishudas to bounce. So I'm in a very good position. So then what you get to do is you get to add yourself a Soul Sword card, and that's going to be pretty nice because we're going to go for the blackout, and this is where our opponent doesn't get to play because we're going to put them under such a straining board that even if they do Dark Ruler us and these all get turned offline, we're still going to get the ability of blackout, which pretty much covers what we need. So what you do here is you're going to set this on pass. What you've got is you've got a quick effect to banish a Soul Sword card or one monster in your hand or grave, which you've got plenty of. To target another effect monster on the field and negate its effects. You've then got Sovereign, which is now going to be your best boss monster, because off the back of Sovereign, you're going to activate your blackout to target your Sovereign, and then 2 cards your opponent controls. You attempt to destroy them, you then use Sovereign's effect to banish and protect, and then by doing so, I believe you can then trigger Sovereign's effect. If you can't then trigger Sovereign's effect to banish from the grave and the field, because if we black out, obviously you do need to keep like 3 cards on board to do that. What you can do is you can just leave the blackout in the grave and then banish the blackout to produce you a token, which gives you that non-effect monster you need for all your Tenyis in the next turn, but it will also trigger the Sovereign to then banish. So if you wanted to do it in stages, you protect and then set up your blackout, giving you a token to then do from there. So not only can they not use lights, and if you destroy a monster by battle, you get to revive, I believe it's during the attributes in the grave. So when this Synchro Summon card is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get da-da-da. Once per turn, when a monster or monsters your opponent controls is destroyed by battle or card effect, you get to special summon a worm-type monster from your deck in defense with an original attribute matching the original attribute that one of those destroyed monsters had. So technically, because you activated the blackout, you could get two more. Well, not two more. You get one more. One more worm from the deck, and you've got a loads of attributes. So if you pop a dark, a light, a wind, I mean, it is just a worm, isn't it? Yeah, you special summon a worm. So you got fire. You pretty much cover all of the bases on this one, and that's just a massive plus. Like, this board, in my opinion, right now is better than the pure version, which I believe the pure version is ending on something like, I think its best one is Phoenix Enforcer plus a Baroness plus the Grandmaster, which is fine. I mean, in theory, I would say the Destroyer Phoenix is probably better than this one, but you still have these cards, and I actually really like the Sovereign. I think Sovereign's an absolute beast of a card. Anyway, that was a very big, in-depth test hand. Now we're going to be able to go a little bit faster, just so you can kind of see the flows of what the deck can do. But you can kind of see how much the Tenyis offer, which I think is absolutely amazing. Yes, I did burn through my entire hand there, but in theory I didn't need to. I could have played it, like, I could have played it safe. I could have held on to a Taio, but the idea was that I've pretty much protected myself from the Nibiru. I'm not fearful of that. As long as I get to the trap card, I'm not really fearful of that. And I'm kind of good from there. I think the only thing that really derails that play is if they imperm the Grandmaster, and then you're kind of like, yeah, that sucks, because then you don't get the trap, and you don't have a way of triggering your Sovereign as and when you want to. Anyway, after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, our second test down going first will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All our go second cards, pretty much. So, I mean, going second, we're in really good shape. Going first, we're still not in bad shape. At the base minimum right here, sadly, is a Synchro level 10. But you still have the ability of your Ashuna to let you go that little bit further. The only issue is you haven't got the ability, unless your opponent plays a hand trap, to get this guy to the board at this moment in time. So you'd have to go Ashuna, special summon that down, turn this into your monk. Then you've got the ability to banish the Ashuna, to special summon one from the deck. And at this point, you're probably going to go with your Adhara, because Adhara will give you the ability to bring back the Ashuna. After than that, apart from getting hand trapped, I don't think we're in the best place. Type 1 monsters go special summon for the special monsters except Tenyis, which is a shame. You could go into your Shaman of the Tenyi, but ultimately I don't think it's worth it. I think the best thing you can do here is turn your Adhara into a monk, banish the Adhara to bring back the Ashuna to the hand. Now you're locked into worms, so you're not really going anywhere too special. This is where it gets a little bit tricky, because you're going to have to go use Strategist to ditch the Ashuna, summon it down, produce yourself a token. You're locked into synchros, so the only target that you really have that's going to be your level 10 is, of course, wherever it is, your Sovereign. Now the only issue you have here is the best thing you can do is kind of like Link Climb, which again isn't that great. I'm trying to think if there was another way of doing this. I don't think there is, because I think the only other level we got is an 11. So the next best thing you can do is you link the monks together, and you go into a Shaman. But then the Shaman can bring back one of those, but it can't really go anywhere because we're not playing a Link 3 or higher. There's no real oomph to take it up a level, which is a bit of a shame. But even that being said, you could set, like, let's say they don't trigger the talents, which if they did, I would have gone for the draw. We would have needed it. So we would have got the search, which is completely fine. Let's say we left our board like this. There's not really a way to trigger this unless they try to destroy it by card effect, which would be relatively pointless. You've got a droplets, and these would be your best targets to send, in my opinion. And then you've got an imperm, which is going to negate. So it's not the best. Going second, we would have been in like Dreamland, because I think our top deck was Duster. So we would have had everything covered. Anyway, let's go second now, and hopefully we get a hand like that. But you can kind of see that the Tenyi doesn't really carry the Swordsoul better. It just gives it so much more consistency, which is mad good. And it's kind of what you're looking for in this deck at this moment in time. Now, they get a new synchro in Battles, which comes out in February, which is the new core set. But for now, this is pretty much what you're going to be seeing at your locals and definitely at the higher competitive events. So let's go second now with 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Okay, we're going with a pure Swordsoul hand. Now, this is the reason that I've kept an Ecclesia in here. I've actually changed the build around and dropped it down. Number one, because I only have one Ecclesia. But number two, the fact that it clashes massively with the Tenyis. Like, if you open up this and a Tenyi, like, this has to be your normal summon. And it's like, yeah, okay, it's cool because it gets me into a Mo Yi. But the special summon effect just doesn't come up. So I don't really want to open it at sometimes. Other than that, the hand is pretty stacked. You can try and bait out hand traps if you want. Like, you can activate emergence, hope you get hand traps or anything like that. I'd probably go for a Mo Yi. Off of the back of this, what I would ultimately be trying to do is I'd probably activate Desires. I would deck fin to make sure I've got my Mo Yi, I've got my Tai, I've got my Strategist. And then the play would literally be activate Desires to see if I get to a Tenyi. So we're going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Draw 2. Didn't get a Tenyi, but we do have protection should our opponent... Like, we're going to end up drawing loads. Did we banish our... banishes weren't too bad. Weren't great, but weren't too bad. Okay, so we've got plenty of plays to kind of make from here. The issue is that you're going to have to normal summon your Mo Yi. Or you're going to go into normal summon the Ecclesia tributes out to get you your Mo Yi. So there's not a huge amount you could really do here because you've got 2 normal summons. In the forms of what I'm saying by that is you can get into a Synchro 10 and you're going to get into a Synchro 8, which is perfectly fine without locking you out into anything. It's just how much further can you go. So let's go with Strategist. Let's dump a Tai because we've got 2 of those, which is fine. Strategist comes down, gives you a nice token for free. And then let's go into a 10. Now with this 10, you're not locked into anything, so you could go into Baron de Fleur. But personally, because I've already activated Desires and I'm going second, I'll go into my Sovereign. Like, my Sovereign's buffed by a K, so it's a 4K beater, and my opponent is negged by a K. So they're already in a little bit of trouble. Not to mention that if at any point I banish anything from the graveyard, which I can do with the emergence to adapt my levels, then I get a non-target banish from field and grave. So that's a really good kind of setup. You're probably going to want your Mo Yi now because your Mo Yi is going to give you that draw when you sink. Now, there's 2 ways of doing it. Like I said, you can normal summon the Ecclesia and attempt to use her effect and kind of drive it from there. Obviously, you're going to burn your opponent for 1200 off the Strategist as well, so keep that in mind. So what we'll do here is we'll normal summon the Mo Yi. We'll reveal a Soul Sword, which will be Tai, and then we get to special summon the token, which gives us access to our level 8s. Now, at this point here, your level 8 options are Dragite, because you've got the Mo Yi in the graveyard. You've also got Draco Berserker, you've got your Psyframe Lord Omega, and you can adapt the level should you want to if you wanted to go up into a 9. But ultimately, you're probably going to go into your Grandmaster. Because by doing this, your Grandmaster effect will trigger, so will your Mo Yi. So Mo Yi Chainlink 1 to draw. Grandmaster Chainlink 2 to add. Now, if you're going all out aggression, you go for the Summit. Because then what this will allow you to do is it lets you add back the Strategist. But we've also got Tai in the grave, actually. So Tai wouldn't be a bad one to bring back. Yeah, alright. Thinking ahead. That's specifically the reason I put Tai in the grave. Because, you know, big brain plays. Activate your Summit. Summit will then let you... If you control a Synchro, you can target a Worm in your graveyard instead. But actually just want to bring back a Soul Sword, which is fine. And then by doing this, you get to banish a Swordsoul card or Worm card in the graveyard to special summon the token. So let's get rid of... Well, Emergence can still adapt to our levels. Sorry, not Emergence. Summit can adapt to our levels. Oh no, both of them can. Fine. Just for now, I'm just going to get rid of Mo Yi, which buffs him up by 100 as well. Keep that in mind. That then gives us a token. We can then trigger the effect to do the banish and the pop, which is great. And then we're still not locked into anything. So if you kept the Mo Yi in graveyard, you'd go into Dragite. If you wanted to, you could actually adapt the levels and go into a Yazi. Yazi then gives you access to any worm monster from your deck. So that gives you a couple of options there. You can buff it up and try and go into a 9, which will be your Chao Feng, which, because you're not using a Yang Xing, you're not really going to get to go anywhere. Your other option is you go into a Baxia. And then by going into the Baxia, because you used a wind and what was the token? Token was a water. So you then get to spin 2 cards back. So you've banished from field. You've also burnt for 1200. This is up by 1100. This is spun 2 more cards. And you still have a full hand of 5. Like if your opponent activates something, you go talent, steal it. And you kind of go from there. So that's actually pretty nuts. It didn't really let me show off the the Tenyi part of this. But it's good. I think that's good. I think it allows me to kind of show you how good Sword-Souls are on their own, but also what the Tenyis offer. So like, if our hand there at any point was like 2 ways of a Tenyi, then going second, not only could you use Vishuda to bait stuff out to try and bounce stuff and get rid of it, but you also get into a Synchro level 9 for pretty much free. And because we maintained our entire full hand, we still had more plays to make, which is absolutely bonkers. So, after another decent shuffle and a good old cut, our final test hand going second will be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. What? What is this? I mean, that's not a bad hand. So, not a bad hand at all. Okay, so straight away, this is the perfect example of how Ecclesia clashes with the Tenyis. So you can special with Ecclesia, but you're not going to get any Tenyi Blaze, which in my opinion is actually the better route of going. So what you want to do here is you want to special summon down your Vishuda. You then want to link your Vishuda into your Monk. Now, this is where it probably gets a little bit tricky, because if your opponent pops the Monk, you still have these plays here in hand, so I wouldn't worry about it too much. But if they pop the Monk, they pretty much out the Tenyi engine, because you can't trigger this until you get a token, and then you can't trigger the Vishuda until you get a token. So it actually means you have to play a little bit more. However, at this exact moment in time, what you can do is you can banish the Vishuda to bounce a card your opponent controls. That will then put them under a bit of pressure, because if they've got, for example, Baron, the Baron then needs to negate it, otherwise it's just going to get bounced off the field. You then activate the Vessel, so you get to send a worm from the deck to the grave. Guess what we're going to be sending, ladies and gentlemen? That's right. You can you can send the Adhara, because the Adhara would give you back the Vishuda, or you could send the Ashuna, and the Ashuna will then give you a free special summon. So this is probably where you're going to get the most out of everything, but it doesn't really matter which way round you do it, because you end up with exactly the same board and the exact same play. So obviously the difference is if you put Adhara in the graveyard and then add the Ashuna, you would summon the Ashuna and then you'd have to link it off first. Whereas in this particular play, what you do is you banish the Ashuna. The Ashuna can then summon out a Vishuda from the deck. Well, actually, you do it the other way around, sorry. Special summon down the Adhara first, because you need to control no effect monsters. Then use the Ashuna to then special summon your Vishuda from the deck. Still maintains your normal summon. Still can then use the ability to sync these together. Now again, it's entirely up to you on where you want to go. Yes, you're locked into worms, which is completely fine. Because if you go into Baxia, Baxia's effect will trigger to spin back 2 because you've used Earth and Dark. You still got the Adhara effect in Grave to bring back. And if you were to put any of these in the graveyard before you pop the Monk, then you actually get an additional extender back. So it's entirely up to you on the route you want to make from here. You've also kept your normal summon. So worst case scenario, if you want the draw so badly off of Mo Yi, you normal summon your Ecclesia and then you can tag it out. So there's your kind of options there. So you're either going for the tie or you're going for the Mo Yi. Personally, you can go for the Mo Yi, but I think we can get all 3 again. So okay, so Baxi is going to do the spin. If I'm massively worried about a particular... If I'm massively worried about a light monster my opponent could possibly drop on me, then I would use Baxia to pop the Tenyi to bring back the Adhara and make my Chow Feng. And then Chow Feng will get a special summon during when it destroys. Let me just check if it comes into attack or defense. One time it has to come in defense, so it doesn't actually gain my attack plays right now. So what I would do here is you would use Strategist to send Tyre from the hand, produce yourself a token. That's going to give you your Synchro level 10. So you go boom. Again, you can go into... I'm going to go into this guy. I still really like this guy, man. Like, he's so good. I'm going to burn my opponent for 1200. Still maintain my normal summon. We're in no kind of bad situation right here. Going to normal summon the Ecclesia. Use Ecclesia's effect. I think the only thing that I haven't got here is protection. Like, negate protection. Like, if my opponent ashes that, I'm kind of like, yeah, that sucks. But it is what it is. Go into the Mo Yi. Mo Yi will reveal the Tyre in hand to special summon the token. Then going to link the token plus the Mo Yi. You go into the Grandmaster, because Grandmaster is going to give you that beautiful add. Chain link 1 of Master, chain link 2 of Mo Yi. Draw a card, and then Mo Yi, not Mo Yi, sorry. Master will search me out the summit. And the only reason I'm going for the summit is because I've got the Tie in the hand, Tie in the grave. So again, this just gives me like so much play and potential. It's mad. Activate the summit, summon out the Tie. Tie's effect to banish one, not obviously the summit. So we're going to banish the Strategist this time because I want the Mo Yi in the grave. Give me a token, trigger this, banish one from grave, banish one from field. Sync these together. Go into another 8. I've got Mo Yi in the grave, so I could go for a Dragite. Could also go for another Baxia, to be honest. It doesn't really matter. It really doesn't matter. It really doesn't matter what I go to. Let me just check. Is it that the Swordsoul? Decreases in Swordsoul monster or Worm monster. That's pretty cool. Okay. I will then use Baxia's effect. Oh no, I'm locked into worms. Ah! Alright, there you go. First mistake. I'll probably go for a second Baxia then, to be honest. I don't believe Baxia is a hard once per turn. So we get another spin off of Baxia, which would have been made with water and wind, so that's 2 more spins. Baxia's effect to pop our Monk. That will then let me bring back anything from the graveyard. So I'm going to bring back a Mo Yi, I can bring back an Adhara or a Tai. Now I'm going to bring back the Adhara. Now, do I have... I can make a Yazi. Like, literally, anything I do from this point on is overextension. Like, I've spun back 4 cards. I've banished a card on the field. I've burnt my opponent for 1200. This guy is now 33. Like, there's no way you kind of falter from here. So your 2 options are, option number 1, you go into Chow Feng as a level 9. Option number 2 is you can actually go into another level 8 if you want to, which would be your Draco Berserker. So you'd just be using this as a stepping stone to spin. If you really wanted to, there was a way to go into Yazi, but I don't think you needed to. Literally, I think this is it. I think the only reason I'd be doing this would be to upgrade to go into a Chow Feng. Opponent can't use light effects, not that they're going to survive further past this point. If a monster gets destroyed by battle, I get a tuner in defense. So, what more do you need? Like, that just goes poof. So this is your pure Swordsoul. This is your Tenyi. Like, what would you rather go? And you still have 2 cards in hand. Still have 2 cards in hand. And I don't think we used the Adhara. So I could have even used Adhara to bring back any of my banished cards. Which would obviously be a Vishuddha or a Shuna. So, like, this deck's mad. This deck's actually mad. And I love it. Absolutely love it. I definitely think the Tenyi one's a lot more fun. I really do. I feel that the Pure is just more protective, because the Pure basically says, you're not going to hand trap me. Whereas this one says, you can hand trap me, but I'm going to be able to play through it because my Tenyis do quite a lot for me anyway. So, yeah, that's it. Short, sweet and simple. I think the only thing that I might change is I might kind of put in the link 3 of the Tenyis, or even the link 4, but I think that's a very rare occurrence that I might want to go into that. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. If you want to see the debt list of this, the full list, then smash that like button. You get the video to at least 50 likes before the weekend's over, and I'll bring that for you. So short and simple. Anyway, thank you so much for watching. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, share. Till next time, guys, as absolutely always, stay safe, and of course, happy dueling.